Varys slammed his fist on the table. It can't be done. Mining the Novium asteroids is suicide, human, pure insanity. Walter Morris leaned forward, his steel blue eyes boring into the furious Pandronian. Impossible? Maybe for you, but not for us. Never underestimate humanity's resolve. We don't believe in impossibilities, only challenges to overcome. The tension in the meeting room was palpable as Walter, Earth's top diplomat, faced off against Varys and the skeptical Pandronian leadership. The rugged human had journeyed to planet Pandros to negotiate a crucial trade deal, but quickly realized these aliens saw humans as primitive, incapable of great feats. During their talks, Walter discovered that Pandronians coveted Novium, a rare element essential to their technology that could only be extracted from asteroids under extremely hazardous conditions. Conditions so deadly that no Pandronian had ever harvested Novium and lived. But where they saw certain death, Walter saw opportunity. He made the Pandronians a bold proposition. Human miners would take on the impossible task of mining the Novium in exchange for lucrative trade terms. If successful, it would give Earth a major economic and technological edge, but failure could mean many human lives lost and humiliation on the galactic stage. Varys objected vehemently, insisting the asteroids were a death trap. Yet Walter's persuasive words and steely determination ultimately convinced Pandronian leadership to agree. The stakes couldn't be higher. Earth's future prosperity and reputation now hinged on this dangerous mining operation. Walter gathered an elite team, the best human miners, engineers, and pilots, a crew ready to brave the perilous unknown. As they prepared for the mission, Walter also had to manage tensions with Varys, who seemed to be hoping for the humans' defeat. The human expedition ship lifted off for the treacherous asteroid belt, the Pandronians watching their every move. Walter stayed behind to oversee the operation and negotiations, praying his faith in human ingenuity wasn't misplaced. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if these daring humans could achieve the impossible and prove their true mettle. As the human mining expedition ship approached the treacherous asteroid field, Jack Holloway wrapped his hand around the chairs of his captain's chair, his eyes scanning the view screen filled with tumbling rocks and debris. Samantha Carter darted between control stations, her fingers flying over touchscreens as she monitored the ship's systems. "All right, crew, listen up." Jack's gravelly voice crackled over the intercom. "We've got a job to do, and it won't be easy, but we're here to prove what humanity is capable of. Let's show these Pandronians what we're made of." The ship shuddered as it entered the asteroid field, the hull groaning under the strain of the intense radiation and gravitational anomalies. Razor-sharp fragments of rock pinged off the ship's shields, each impact sending tremors through the vessel. Samantha called out, "Shields at 70% and holding, but the radiation levels are off the charts." Jack nodded, his fists tight. "Keep an eye on those levels. We can't afford to have any system failures." Suddenly, the communications console chimed. "Incoming message from Pandros, Captain. It's Mr. Morris." Walter's face appeared on the screen, his expression grim. "Jack, Samantha, we've got trouble. Varys just informed me that a massive solar flare is heading your way. The Pandronians' sensors picked it up, but their technology can't do anything to stop it." Samantha's eyes widened. "A solar flare? Out here? That's impossible." Walter shook his head. "Apparently not. Varys seems to think this proves we're in over our heads." Jack scoffed. "We'll see about that. Samantha, any ideas?" Samantha chewed her lip, her brow furrowed in concentration. Suddenly, her face lit up. "The Novium! Its unique properties might be able to deflect the solar radiation. If we can mine enough of it and strategically place it around the ship, we could create an improvised shield." Jack grinned. "That's my girl." "All right, crew, you heard her. Let's get that Novium and fast." The mining ships sprang into action, their drills and grappling arms working overtime to extract the precious element from the asteroids. Engineers hastily welded the Novium plates to the ship's exterior, creating a patchwork of gleaming metal. As the solar flare struck, the ships shook violently, warning klaxons blaring. The crew held their breath, watching the external cameras as the wall of solar radiation engulfed them. Miraculously, the Novium shields held, the deadly energy dissipating harmlessly across their surface. Cheers erupted throughout the ship, but the celebration was short-lived. The intense radiation from the flare exacerbated the gravitational anomalies, causing the asteroid field to churn with renewed fury. Massive chunks of rock hurtled toward the ships, their jagged edges glinting menacingly in the starlight. Jack gripped the controls, his squeezing hard. "Hold on tight, everyone. We're not out of this yet." The ship swerved and dove, narrowly avoiding the deadly projectiles. Mining pods were deployed, their pilots navigating the chaotic field with white-knuckle intensity. Samantha worked frantically to keep the ship's systems online, rerouting power and adjusting the shields to compensate for the ever-changing conditions. On Pandros, Walter paced the negotiation room, his heart racing as he received updates from the mining expedition. Each success, each harrowing escape, filled him with a mix of pride and anxiety. He turned to the Pandronian delegation, his voice steady despite the tension. "As you can see, our people are resourceful and determined. They face challenges head-on and find solutions where others see only obstacles." The Pandronians murmured amongst themselves, their initial skepticism slowly giving way to grudging respect. Walter pressed on, using the expedition's triumphs to chip away at their doubts. In the heart of the asteroid field, Jack and Samantha pushed their crew to the brink, driving them to mine every last scrap of novium they could find. The physical and mental toll was immense, with tensions running high and tempers flaring. But Jack's unwavering leadership and Samantha's brilliant problem-solving kept them focused on their goal. As the last of the novium was loaded into the ship's holds, Jack let out a sigh of relief. "That's it. We've got what we came for. Let's get the hell out of here." But even as the ships prepared to depart, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were just the beginning. Little did he know that back on Pandros, Varys was already setting in motion a plan to sabotage their hard-won success. Walter, too, sensed that something was amiss. As he delved deeper into Pandronian culture and history, he began to uncover hints that novium was more than just a valuable resource. It could be the key to unlocking technologies that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. With the clock ticking down and the stakes higher than ever, the human crew raced back to Pandros, their holds filled with the precious novium. But the true test of their mettle was yet to come, as they navigated a web of intrigue and betrayal that threatened to unravel everything they had fought so hard to achieve. Jack Holloway stood on the bridge of the mining vessel, watching his crew load the last of the novium onto the ships. The tension in his shoulders eased slightly as he saw the fruits of their labor secured. "Final checks complete, Captain," Samantha called out. "We're ready to begin our journey back to Pandros." Jack nodded, allowing himself a small smile. "Excellent work, everyone. Let's—" A deafening boom cut him off. The ship lurched violently, throwing Jack and his crew to the floor. Alarms blared as the view screen filled with debris. "What the hell was that?" Jack shouted, scrambling to his feet. Samantha's fingers flew across her console. "Explosion on the starboard flank. We're losing containment on cargo hold 3. Jack watched in horror as one of their ships broke apart, scattering precious novium into the void. His mind raced. This was no accident. "All hands, emergency protocols," he barked. "Get those fires under control and seal off the damaged sections." As his crew fought to save their ship, Jack's communicator chirped. Walter's face appeared, grim and urgent. "Jack, we've got problems," Walter said. "Varys just accused us of stealing Pandronian tech. He's got evidence, but it's clearly fabricated. I think he might be behind your troubles up there." Jack's eyes hardened. "Sabotage. I knew it. We'll investigate here. You keep an eye on Varys." Over the next few hours, Jack and his team combed through the wreckage. They found traces of an unknown explosive compound near the blast site. "Captain," one of the engineers called out, "you need to see this." Jack hurried over. The engineer held up a small device, alien in design. "Pandronian tech," Jack muttered. "But how—" A flurry of movement caught his eye. A figure in an unfamiliar suit was racing toward the escape pods. "Stop!" Jack yelled, giving chase. The figure reached an escape pod and began the launch sequence. Jack lunged, grabbing onto the pod's door as it sealed shut. The two grappled inside the cramped space as the pod ejected from the ship. With a well-placed punch, Jack knocked off the intruder's helmet, revealing a Pandronian face. "Who sent you?" Jack demanded. The agent remained silent, but Jack noticed a small insignia on their suit, a stylized eye. Back on the ship, Jack interrogated the captured Pandronian. After hours of questioning, the agent finally broke. "It was Varys," they admitted. "But he answers to someone called the Overseer. They see you humans as a threat. They wanted to ruin your mission, discredit you." Jack relayed this information to Walter, who confronted the Pandronian leadership with the evidence. Faced with proof of their treachery, they had no choice but to honor the original agreement. As the crew finished repairs and prepared to depart, Jack noticed an anomaly on the long-range scanners. "Samantha, what's that?" he asked, pointing to a strange reading. They maneuvered closer, revealing an ancient derelict ship unlike anything they'd ever seen. "My God," Samantha breathed. "The design, it's incredible." Inside, they found a small, pulsing artifact. Jack carefully secured it, knowing its discovery could change everything. The journey back to Pandros was tense but uneventful. As they landed, Walter greeted them, surrounded by cheering humans and Pandronians alike. "We did it," Walter said, clasping Jack's hand. "But I can't shake the feeling that this is just the beginning." Jack nodded, thinking of the artifact secured in the ship's hold. "I think you might be right about that." Walter Morris stood before the Pandronian High Council. His eyes hardened as he faced down Varys and his allies. The chamber buzzed with tension, angry voices rising and falling as the debate raged on. "This artifact belongs to Pandros," Varys shouted, pounding his fist on the podium. "It was found in our territory, using our resources. The humans have no right to it." Walter stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "With all due respect, Councillor Varys, this artifact transcends mere territorial claims. We've just scratched the surface of its potential, and already it's clear that it could reshape our understanding of the galaxy. This isn't just about Pandros or Earth. It's about all of us." He turned to address the full council. "We've already uncovered evidence of sabotage orchestrated by elements within your own government. Can you truly trust that this artifact will be studied objectively if it remains solely in Pandronian hands?" Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Walter pressed on. "I propose a joint research initiative. Human and Pandronian scientists working together to unlock the artifact's secrets. Think of what we could accomplish if we combine our knowledge and resources." Some of the more progressive council members nodded in agreement, but Varys wasn't backing down. "More lies and manipulation. First, you steal our novium, and now you want to rob us of our technological heritage. I warn you, Morris, if you don't hand over that artifact immediately, there will be consequences." As the political storm raged on, Jack Holloway and Samantha Carter worked feverishly in a hidden lab beneath the human embassy. The artifact sat on a workbench, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. "Look at this, Jack," Samantha said, pointing to a holographic display. "The data storage capacity is off the charts, and these transmissions, I've never seen encoding like this before." Jack leaned in, his eyes widening. "It's like nothing we've ever encountered. This tech is light years beyond anything the Pandronians have." Suddenly alarms blared throughout the facility. Jack's hand flew to his sidearm. "We've got company." The lab door exploded inward and Pandronian soldiers poured through the opening. Jack and Samantha dove for cover as energy weapons fire filled the air. "Grab the artifact!" Jack shouted, returning fire with his own weapon. Samantha snatched the artifact and sprinted for the emergency exit. Jack provided covering fire, downing 2 Pandronians before following her. They raced through underground tunnels, the sound of pursuit echoing behind them. Emerging into the Pandronian night, they found Walter waiting with a shuttle. Go, 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 Jack yelled as they piled in. The shuttle lifted off, narrowly avoiding a barrage of weapons fire from the ground. Walter's voice crackled over the comms. All ships, initiate emergency departure protocols. We're leaving Pandros, now. As their small fleet prepared to break orbit, Pandronian warships moved to intercept. Energy beams lanced out, rocking the human vessels. We can't take much more of this, Samantha called out from her station. Walter's face was grim as he made the call. Deploy the Novium to the engines. Push them beyond maximum output. Sir, that could burn out the entire system, an engineer protested. It's that or be blown to pieces, Walter replied. Do it. The ships lurched as the Novium flooded their power systems. Alarms blared, warning of imminent system failure, but the gambit worked. They burst through the Pandronian blockade, streaking away from the planet. As they entered deep space, the adrenaline of their escape faded, replaced by a new dread. Warning lights flashed across every console. Engine burnout in all ships, Samantha reported. We're dead in the water. Walter surveyed his crew, seeing fear and uncertainty on their faces. All right, people, we're not out of this yet. We've got the brightest minds humanity has to offer on these ships. Let's figure out how to get home. Jack and Samantha threw themselves into the problem, working around the clock. Days blurred together as they experimented with the remaining Novium, pushing the boundaries of what they thought possible. Finally, Samantha burst into the command center, her eyes bright with excitement. We did it. We've jury-rigged a Novium-based propulsion system. It's not pretty, and it's slow, but it'll get us moving. A cheer went up from the crew, but Walter remained focused. Good work, but we're not safe yet. The Pandronians will be coming for us, and they've got faster ships. We need to stay alert. As if on cue, the long-range sensors lit up. A massive Pandronian fleet was assembling, preparing to give chase. Walter turned to his crew, his voice steady despite the weight on his shoulders. This isn't just about us anymore. What we've discovered could change everything. We have to make it home, no matter the consequences. The fate of Earth, Pandros, maybe the entire galaxy depends on it. The human ships limped forward, beginning their long journey home. Behind them, the Pandronian armada loomed, growing larger with each passing moment. The race for the artifact and the future of the galaxy had begun. The crippled human ships limped through the asteroid field, their makeshift Novium drives sputtering and straining against the void. On the bridge of the lead vessel, Walter Morris gripped the edge of a console, his nucleus tightening as he watched the swarm of asteroids tumble past on the screen. Status report, he barked, his voice taut with tension. Samantha Carter glanced up from her station, dark circles under her eyes. Novium reserves at 12% and falling. We've got maybe 2 days of power left at this rate. Walter nodded grimly. And the Pandronians? Still closing, Jack Holloway replied, his fingers dancing across a tactical display. They're having trouble navigating the field, but it's only a matter of time before they catch up. A violent shudder rocked the ship as a small asteroid glanced off their hull. Alarms blared, and Walter steadied himself against a chair. Damage report, he shouted over the cacophony. Hull breach on deck 3, came the frantic reply. Emergency force fields are holding, but barely. Walter's heart made. He keyed the ship-wide comms. All hands, this is Morris. We're pushing through to the edge of the field. It's going to get rough. Hang on to something and pray to whatever gods you believe in. As he released the comm button, Walter caught sight of Zeke Hawkins skulking at the back of the bridge. The pilot's eyes darted nervously between the crew members, his hand never far from the pistol at his hip. Walter approached him, keeping his voice low. I need every skilled hand we've got, Hawkins. Are you with us or not? Zeke's lips curled into a sneer. You've led us to our deaths, old man. We should have stayed on Pandros. That wasn't an option, Walter growled. Now man your station or get off my bridge. With a final glare, Zeke stalked off. Walter watched him go, a seed of unease taking root in his gut. Hours crawled by as the battered convoy navigated the treacherous asteroid field. Each impact, each near-miss frayed nerves already stretched to the breaking point. In the aft section of the ship, Zeke huddled with a group of like-minded crew members. "Morris is going to get us all killed," he hissed. "We need to take control now before it's too late." A nervous technician spoke up. "But what about the artifact? The Pandronians will—" Zeke cut him off. "To hell with the artifact. It's what got us into this mess. We dump it, make a deal with the Pandronians, and get back to Earth in one piece." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the group. Zeke allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. "Tonight," he whispered. "We move tonight." As the human ships crept deeper into the asteroid field, a sleek Pandronian vessel slipped silently between the tumbling rocks. Its stealth systems rendered it nearly invisible to the primitive human sensors. On its bridge, a Pandronian commander received new orders from Varys himself. "Understood," the commander said, his voice cold and precise. "We will retrieve the artifact at any cost." The Pandronian ship accelerated, closing the gap to its unsuspecting prey. Aboard the lead human vessel, Walter pored over star charts with Jack and Samantha, plotting their desperate course to salvation. A sudden explosion rocked the ship, throwing them to the floor. Klaxons wailed as the lights flickered and died. "We're hit," Samantha shouted, scrambling to her feet. "Multiple hull breaches." Walter hauled himself up, his face illuminated by the red emergency lighting. "How? The asteroids shouldn't have—" His words were cut off by the staccato sound of weapons fire. The bridge doors blew inward, and armored figures surged through the opening. Pandronian infiltrators, their energy weapons spitting blue fire. "Get down!" Jack roared, shoving Walter and Samantha behind a console as he returned fire with his sidearm. The bridge erupted into chaos. Human security forces rushed to engage the Pandronian boarders, but they were outgunned and outmatched. Bodies fell on both sides as the air filled with the acrid smell of ozone and burning metal. In the confusion, Zeke and his mutineers made their move. They stormed the bridge from a secondary entrance, catching both sides off guard. "The ship is ours," Zeke bellowed, his weapon trained on Walter. "Stand down, all of you." For a moment, the firefight paused as both humans and Pandronians tried to make sense of this new development. Walter locked eyes with Zeke, seeing the fear and desperation behind the younger man's bravado. "Don't do this, Hawkins," Walter said, his voice steady despite the madness unfolding around him. "You're throwing away everything we've fought for." Zeke's hand trembled slightly. "No, I'm saving us. We're going to make a deal with the Pandronians. Give them the artifact in exchange for safe passage home." A harsh laugh cut through the tension. The Pandronian commander stepped forward, his alien features twisting into a cruel smile. "Foolish humans. Did you really think we would honor such a bargain?" In that instant, Zeke realized the magnitude of his mistake. He turned, intending to warn his fellow mutineers, but it was too late. The Pandronians opened fire, cutting down humans indiscriminately. Walter seized the moment of confusion. He lunged for the ship's controls, slamming his palm down on the emergency thrusters. The sudden acceleration sent everyone sprawling, friend and foe alike. "Jack!" Walter shouted over the din. "The artifact! We can't let them take it!" Jack nodded grimly. He fought his way through the melee, making for the secure chamber where the artifact was stored. Samantha provided covering fire, her face set with fierce concentration as she picked off Pandronian boarders. The ship bucked and weaved through the asteroid field, each impact threatening to tear the battered vessel apart. Walter wrestled with the controls, using every trick he'd learned in a lifetime of space travel to keep them alive for just a few more minutes. In the artifact chamber, Jack found himself face-to-face with the Pandronian commander. They grappled for control of the priceless object, neither willing to yield. A stray shot from the ongoing battle struck the containment field, and alarms shrieked as the chamber began to depressurize. The artifact slipped from their grasp, tumbling towards the widening breach in the hull. Jack lunged for it, his fingers closing around the alien device just as he was sucked out into the void of space. On the bridge, Walter saw Jack's life signs flatlining on the ship's sensors. His heart clenched, but he forced himself to focus on the task at hand. They had one shot at this. Samantha, he called out, divert all remaining power to the Novium drives. We're going to slingshot around that planetoid and retrieve Jack and the artifact. Samantha's eyes widened. Sir, that's impossible. The G-forces alone would... Just do it, Walter snapped. It's our only chance. As Samantha worked feverishly at her console, Walter opened a channel to the other human ships. This is Morris. We've been boarded, but we're not out of this fight. On my mark, execute a maximum burn towards these coordinates. We're getting our people back and getting the hell out of here. He took a deep breath, steadying himself for what was to come. May whatever gods are out there have mercy on our souls, he muttered, because the Pandronians sure as hell won't. With a silent prayer, Walter engaged the Novium drives to full power. The ship surged forward, plunging deeper into the asteroid field as the Pandronian fleet gave chase, determined to claim their prize at any cost. The battered human ships limped through space, their hulls scorched and pitted from the brutal escape through the asteroid field. On the bridge of the lead vessel, Walter Morris stared at the readouts with bloodshot eyes. "Status report," he barked, his voice hoarse from hours of shouting orders. Samantha Carter looked up from her console, her face smeared with grime and sweat. "Fuel reserves at critical levels, sir. Hull integrity down to 42%. We've got maybe 2 hours before total systems failure." Walter nodded grimly. "And the Pandronians?" "Still in pursuit," Jack Holloway replied, his fingers dancing across the tactical display. "But we've gained some distance. They're about 3 hours behind us now." Walter's mind raced, weighing their dwindling options. He turned to the engineer standing nearby. "What's left of our Novium stockpile?" The engineer hesitated. "Sir, we've barely got enough to power life support for another day." "I don't care about life support," Walter snapped. "Can we use it to boost our engines?" The engineer's eyes widened. "Theoretically, yes, but it would be incredibly dangerous. We'd be pushing our drives far beyond their design limits." Walter's mind focused. "Do it. Jury-rig whatever you need to. I want every last drop of power squeezed out of that Novium." As the engineering team scrambled to implement Walter's desperate plan, alarms blared across the ship. The hull groaned under the strain of their mad dash through space. Hours ticked by in a haze of frantic activity. Crew members worked tirelessly, their hands blistered and bleeding as they rerouted power conduits and bypassed safety protocols. Finally, the chief engineer's voice crackled over the comm. "We're ready, sir. But I have to warn you, this is insane. We could tear ourselves apart." Walter took a deep breath. "Understood. All hands, brace for acceleration. Engaging Novium boost in 3, 2, 1. The ship lurched violently as the makeshift engine modifications kicked in. A deafening roar filled the air as raw energy surged through the vessel's systems. Sparks erupted from overloaded consoles, and the deck plates buckled under their feet. But it worked. The stars outside became streaks of light as they hurtled forward at impossible speeds, leaving the Pandronian fleet far behind. Their victory was short-lived. As they pushed deeper into uncharted space, a massive disturbance appeared on their sensors. Walter's blood ran cold as he saw the swirling vortex of energy that blocked their path. "My God," Samantha whispered. "What is that thing?" Walter studied the readings, his mind racing. The anomaly's gravitational pull was already tugging at their ships, threatening to tear them apart. There was no way around it, not with their battered engines and dwindling power reserves. He made a decision. "We're going through it." Jack spun in his chair. "Sir, that's suicide. The gravitational forces alone will—" "We don't have a choice," Walter cut him off. "Plot a course straight through the center. Use the artifact's energy signature as a guide." As they plunged into the churning maelstrom, chaos erupted aboard the ships. Alarms wailed as hull plates buckled and tore away. Crew members screamed as they were tossed about like rag dolls. In the engine room, Jack and Samantha worked furiously to implement their desperate plan. They rerouted the remaining Novium into a makeshift shield matrix, praying it would be enough to deflect the worst of the anomaly's fury. The bridge became a scene of frantic activity as Walter barked orders, fighting to keep their trajectory stable. Sweat poured down his face as he wrestled with the controls, every muscle in his body straining against the immense forces threatening to tear them apart. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, the alien artifact pulsed with brilliant energy. The vortex's chaos momentarily subsided, creating a narrow window of calm. Walter seized the opportunity. All power to engines! Push through now! The battered human ship surged forward, riding the artifact's energy pulse like a surfboard on a cosmic wave. In a blinding flash, they burst free of the anomaly's grasp. As the light faded and their sensors came back online, a stunned silence fell over the bridge. The star patterns outside were completely unfamiliar. Samantha's voice shook as she reported their position. "Sir, we're on the outskirts of the Sol system. We're home." A ragged cheer went up from the exhausted crew, but Walter remained focused on the tactical display. His heart sank as he saw the massive buildup of Pandronian forces near Earth. "They're waiting for us," he said grimly. "Varys and the Overseer. They knew we'd come this way." The crew fell silent, the weight of their situation settling over them like a shroud. Their ships were falling apart, their supplies depleted. And now, on the very doorstep of home, they faced a Pandronian armada poised to snatch victory from their grasp. Walter straightened his shoulders, his voice steady as he addressed his battered crew. "This is it, people. One last push. We've come too far to fail now. Prepare for battle stations." The vast expanse of space fell silent as the last echoes of the artifact's energy pulse faded away. Walter Morris stared out the viewport at the eerie tableau of motionless ships, human and Pandronian alike, floating amidst the asteroid field. The pulse had left them all powerless, adrift in the void. "Status report," Walter barked, his voice cutting through the tense silence on the bridge. A technician peered at a flickering display. "Life support's on emergency power, sir. We've got maybe 6 hours of air left." Walter nodded grimly. "What about propulsion? Communications?" "Nothing, sir. That pulse fried every system." Across the bridge, Samantha Carter worked furiously at a jury-rigged console, her fingers flying over makeshift controls. "I'm trying to re-establish a connection to the artifact's power matrix," she said, frustration evident in her voice. "If we can tap into its energy, we might be able to jumpstart our systems." Jack Holloway stood at her side, passing her tools and components as needed. "Any luck isolating the resonance frequency?" Samantha shook her head. "It's like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. The artifact's energy signature is constantly shifting." Walter watched the Pandronian ships through the viewport, noting the lack of activity. "They're in the same boat we are," he mused. "Varys won't risk losing the artifact. He'll have to negotiate." As if on cue, a weak transmission crackled through their comms. "Human vessels," a cold alien voice intoned. "This is the Overseer. We propose an immediate cessation of hostilities and a temporary alliance to restore power to our respective fleets." Walter exchanged glances with his officers before responding. "Agreed, Overseer. But let's be clear, this changes nothing. Once we're operational, all bets are off." "Understood," the Overseer replied, a hint of amusement in its voice. "May the best species win." With the ceasefire in place, both sides began the arduous task of restarting their crippled vessels. Walter coordinated with the Earth Defense Forces, pooling their limited resources to tackle the monumental challenge before them. Hours ticked by as engineering teams worked tirelessly, their breath frosting in the increasingly cold air of the unpowered ships. Walter moved from station to station, offering encouragement and lending a hand where he could. In the artifact containment chamber, Jack and Samantha labored over the alien device, desperately trying to coax some spark of life from its inscrutable mechanisms. "There's got to be a way to control it," Jack muttered, his teeth chattering from the cold. "Something we're missing." Samantha's eyes suddenly widened. "Wait a second," she breathed, reaching for a discarded piece of equipment. "What if we're not supposed to control it at all? What if we're supposed to resonate with it?" She quickly rigged up a crude interface, linking the artifact to the ship's dead systems. Here goes nothing, she said, activating the device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low hum, the artifact began to glow. Energy coursed through the ship's systems, bringing consoles and lights flickering back to life. "You did it!" Jack exclaimed, grinning at Samantha. Their triumph was short-lived. Alarms blared as the ship's sensors came back online, revealing a disturbing development. "Sir!" a tactical officer shouted. "The Pandronians! They're powering up!" Walter rushed to the main view screen, watching in dismay as the alien vessels began to move. Varys had somehow managed to restart his ships faster than the humans. "All hands! Battle stations!" Walter roared. "This ceasefire is over!" As the human fleet scrambled to bring weapons and shields online, the Pandronian armada surged forward, closing in for the kill. Walter knew they were out of time. Their only hope now lay in somehow getting the artifact to Earth before Varys could seize it. With the battle resuming and their ship only partially powered, Walter faced an impossible choice: fight a hopeless battle here in the asteroid belt, or make a desperate run for Earth with a Pandronian armada in hot pursuit. The artifact's energy pulse faded, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Walter Morris blinked, his eyes adjusting to the dimness of the unpowered bridge. Emergency lights cast a faint red glow, revealing the tense faces of his crew. "Status report," Walter croaked, his throat dry from the recycled air. Samantha Carter tapped furiously at her dead console. "All systems offline, sir. Life support's on emergency power. We've got maybe 6 hours of breathable air left." Walter scanned the viewport, taking in the motionless Pandronian ships scattered among the asteroids. "They're in the same boat. We need to act fast." He turned to Jack Holloway. "Get a team together. We're heading to the artifact chamber." As they made their way through the darkened corridors, Walter's mind raced. They needed a plan, and fast. In the chamber, the artifact sat silent, its alien contours barely visible in the gloom. Walter addressed the gathered engineers. "Listen up. Our only shot is to use this thing to jumpstart our systems. Any ideas?" Samantha stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Sir, if we can modulate its energy output, we might be able to channel it into our reactors." Jack nodded. "It's risky, but it's our best shot." They set to work, jury-rigging connections between the artifact and the ship's power grid. Sweat beaded on their foreheads as they raced against time. Suddenly, a distant explosion rocked the ship. Walter grabbed his comm unit. "Bridge, report." A panicked voice came through. "Sir, the Pandronians are on the move. They're launching strikes across the debris field." Walter cursed. "They're trying to cut us off. Work faster, people." As the sounds of battle grew closer, Samantha let out a triumphant yell. "I've got it! Channeling power, now!" The artifact hummed to life, tendrils of energy snaking through the makeshift connections. One by one, systems across the ship flickered back online. Walter's comm crackled. "Sir, we've got partial power, but the Pandronians are closing in fast." He turned to his team. "Get to your stations, we're getting out of here." As Walter sprinted back to the bridge, the ship shuddered under enemy fire. He strapped himself into the command chair, squeezing the armrests as he surveyed the tactical display. "Evasive maneuvers," he barked. "Use the asteroids for cover." The human ship lurched into motion, weaving through the debris field as Pandronian vessels gave chase. Walter's eyes darted between readouts, searching for an escape route. "Sir," Samantha called out, "our air reserves are critically low. We can't outrun them like this." Walter's lips pursed. He keyed the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare to vent atmospheric reserves on my mark." Confused murmurs filled the bridge. Jack looked at him in disbelief. "Sir, that's suicide." "It's our only chance," Walter replied. "We'll use the expelled air for propulsion. It might give us the burst we need to break free." As Pandronian weapons fire intensified around them, Walter took a deep breath. "All hands, mark!" The ship bucked violently as precious air vented into space, creating a desperate burst of speed. They hurtled through the asteroid field, narrowly dodging debris and enemy ships alike. For agonizing minutes, they played a deadly game of cat and mouse, using the artifact's power to sporadically restart systems and stay ahead of their pursuers. The cost was high. Walter watched grimly as Allied ships sacrificed themselves to clear their path. "We can't keep this up," Jack said, his voice strained from the thinning air. "We need a way out of this field." Walter's eyes narrowed. "Samantha, can we use the artifact to clear a path?" She nodded, her fingers flying over the controls. Diverting power to a focus beam. Brace for impact. A blinding lance of energy erupted from the ship, carving through the densest cluster of asteroids ahead. The resulting explosion of superheated debris battered both human and Pandronian vessels. Alarms blared across the bridge as systems failed under the strain. Walter fought the controls, guiding their damaged ship through the gap they'd created. "Main drive's offline," Samantha shouted. "We're running on fumes." Walter's mind raced. "The Novium reserves. Can we use them?" Samantha's eyes widened. "It's insanely risky, but yes, give me a minute." As she worked, Walter watched the tactical display with growing dread. They were almost clear of the debris field, but Pandronian ships were closing in from all sides. "Now or never, Samantha," he called out. With a thunderous roar, the main drive ignited in a brilliant flare of Novium-fueled energy. Walter's hands danced across the controls, executing a series of wild maneuvers that sent them hurtling through the last of the asteroids. They burst into open space, a collective cheer rising from the exhausted crew. But their elation was short-lived. "Multiple contacts!" Jack shouted. "We're surrounded!" Walter's heart sank as he saw the ring of Pandronian warships waiting for them. On the main view screen, Varys's cold, alien face appeared. "Surrender now, humans," the Pandronian leader hissed. "Hand over the artifact, or be destroyed." Walter stood facing the screen defiantly. "We'll die before we let you have it, Varys. You want this artifact? Come and take it." As tension built to a breaking point, the artifact began to pulse with strange energy. Walter turned, his eyes wide with shock as the glow engulfed the entire ship. "What's happening?" he managed to ask before a blinding flash consumed them all. In the next instant, Walter found himself staring at the familiar blue-green orb of Earth. Cheers and cries of disbelief filled the bridge as they realized where they were. As they began their descent, Walter allowed himself a small smile. They had made it home against impossible odds, but he knew their battle was nowhere near the end. Somewhere out there, Varys and the Pandronians were already plotting their revenge. The real war, he realized, was just beginning. The hum of engines filled the hangar as Samantha Carter prepped her stealth shuttle for launch. Her fingers danced across the control panel, running last-minute system checks. Jack Holloway stood nearby, his face etched with concern. "You sure about this, Sam?" Jack asked, his voice low. "We could send a team instead." Samantha shook her head, her eyes never leaving the display. "No, I need to do this myself. Walter trusted us with these coordinates. I won't risk anyone else getting their hands on that shard." Jack nodded, understanding the weight of their responsibility. He handed her a small, encrypted data chip. "Here's the latest intel on Pandronian movements in that sector. Be careful out there." As Samantha took the chip, their hands touched briefly. A moment of unspoken communication passed between them, born from years of shared struggle and loss. The hangar doors slid open, revealing the star-studded expanse of space. Samantha settled into the pilot's seat, her mind racing with memories of Walter's final moments. "Sam," Walter had rasped, his body racked with pain as the artifact's energies consumed him. "You have to keep the shard safe. Humanity isn't ready for this power. No one is." She'd watched in awe and horror as Walter channeled the last of his strength, fracturing the artifact into 7 glowing fragments, each shard pulsed with reality-warping potential, a glimpse of the cosmos itself captured within. Now, as her shuttle cleared Earth's atmosphere, Samantha felt the weight of that trust. One of the shards was hidden on a remote, icy moon, orbiting a gas giant in a system light years from Earth. Her mission, retrieve it, and ensure it remained out of reach from those who would abuse its power. Days passed in the cramped confines of the stealth shuttle. Samantha pored over data, fine-tuning her approach vector to avoid detection. As she neared her destination, proximity alarms blared to life. "No," she breathed, her heart racing as she scanned the readouts. "It can't be." A Pandronian scout ship hung in low orbit around the moon, its sensors sweeping the surface. Samantha killed her engines, relying on the shuttle's stealth systems to mask her presence. She watched, pulse pounding, as the alien vessel continued its methodical search pattern. Varys had somehow learned of the shard's location. The race to claim it had begun in earnest. Samantha's mind raced, weighing her options. She could abort the mission, return to Earth, and come back with reinforcements, but that would risk losing the shard forever. No, she had to act now. With steady hands, she plotted a daring course. Using the moon's magnetic field to mask her approach, Samantha guided the shuttle into a steep dive towards the surface. Ice crystals formed on the monitor as she plunged through the thin atmosphere. The shuttle touched down with a bone-jarring thud. Samantha donned her enviro suit, triple-checking the seals. She grabbed her gear and cycled the airlock, stepping out onto the frigid, alien landscape. Wind-sculpted ice formations stretched as far as the eye could see. Samantha activated her scanner, searching for the unique energy signature of the reality shard. A faint ping drew her attention to a nearby ridge. As she trudged through the knee-deep snow, a flash of movement caught her eye. She ducked behind an ice formation, heart pounding. Through the swirling snow, she glimpsed the unmistakable silhouette of a Pandronian scout. They were already on the surface, closing in on the shard's location. Samantha gripped her weapon, knowing that the fate of reality itself might hinge on what happened next. The icy moon's surface crackled beneath Samantha's boots as she crouched behind the jagged ice formation. Her breath fogged the inside of her helmet as she peered around the crystalline structure, catching glimpses of the Pandronian scout through the swirling snow. Her fingers tightened around her weapon. The reality shard, hidden somewhere nearby, pulsed with an energy that set her teeth on edge. She couldn't let it fall into Pandronian hands. Samantha inched forward, using the howling wind to mask her movements. The scout's back was turned, its elongated form hunched over a scanner. She raised her weapon, ready to strike. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet shifted. A patch of unstable ice gave way, sending Samantha tumbling down a steep incline. She rolled, desperately trying to regain her footing as alarms blared inside her helmet. The Pandronian whirled, its multifaceted eyes locking onto her. It let out a high-pitched screech that cut through the wind, alerting others to her presence. Samantha scrambled to her feet, adrenaline surging through her veins. She sprinted across the frozen landscape, dodging energy blasts that left scorched craters in the ice. Her scanner beeped urgently, guiding her toward the shard's location. More Pandronians converged on her position, their chittering calls echoing across the barren moon. Samantha ducked behind an outcropping, her chest heaving as she tried to catch her breath. She tapped her wrist computer, sending out an encrypted distress signal to any human ships in range. "Come on, Jack," she muttered. "I could use some backup right about now." But she knew the chances of rescue were slim. They'd scattered across the galaxy, each safeguarding their own piece of the artifact. She was on her own. The reality shard's energy signature grew stronger. Samantha pressed on, weaving through a maze of ice formations as Pandronian plasma fire rained down around her. She skidded to a halt at the edge of a vast crevasse, the shard's hiding place, somewhere in its depths. Samantha hesitated for a split second before leaping into the abyss. She activated her suit's grappling system, the line anchoring into the ice wall as she rappelled down. The crevasse narrowed, squeezing her between sheets of ancient ice. Her scanner went wild. There, embedded in the translucent wall, was the reality shard. Its otherworldly glow pulsed in time with her racing heart. Samantha reached out, her gloved fingers brushing against the shard's surface. Energy crackled, arcing between the artifact and her suit. She gritted her teeth against the pain and pulled, wrenching the shard free. Above, Pandronian voices grew closer. They'd found the crevasse. With the shard clutched to her chest, Samantha began her ascent. Each movement sent jolts of raw power coursing through her body. The artifact's energy interfered with her suit's systems, causing her visor to flicker and alarms to blare. She hauled herself over the edge just as the first Pandronian soldiers arrived. Samantha stumbled to her feet, her muscles screaming in protest. She faced the alien warriors, the shard humming with untapped potential in her grasp. "You want this?" she snarled, her voice hoarse. "Come and get it." The reality shard pulsed, responding to her defiance. A wave of energy exploded outward, warping the very fabric of space around them. Samantha watched in awe as the Pandronians were thrown back, their forms distorting as if seen through a fractured lens. She didn't waste the opportunity. Samantha ran, pushing her battered body to its limits as she raced back to her shuttle. The shard's power coursed through her, each step leaving reality itself rippling in her wake. Samantha reached her ship, practically falling into the cockpit as she initiated launch sequences. The shuttle rose, fighting against the moon's gravity and the artifact's reality-warping influence. As she broke atmosphere, Samantha allowed herself a moment of relief. But she knew this was only the beginning. Varys would not stop until he possessed all the shards. She set coordinates for a distant system, preparing for a long journey into hiding. The reality shard sat in her lap, a constant reminder of the burden she now carried. "I won't let you down, Walter," Samantha whispered, her eyes fixed on the star-filled expanse before her. "Whatever it takes, we'll keep this power safe." The shuttle vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a moon forever changed by the clash between human and Pandronian. And deep in the void of space, Varys received word of Samantha's escape, his alien features twisting with rage as he vowed to hunt her to the ends of the galaxy.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.